Okay, everyone, Wednesday show with Practical CBT, your route to great mental health. Check out all their stuff in the description. Yes, the voice is not better. It's maybe slightly better than Monday. Maybe slightly worse. I was actually doing a bit better yesterday, and then I decided to go and see Oasis again for the second time. But yeah, needless to say, we are back to square one. But yeah, kind of looking to get back into things properly today. I feel like the channel's been a little bit stop-start over the past few days. I've just had different things on. Voice has been struggling as well. But yeah, today just kind of got a roundup of things that are happening, because there is a hell of a lot that is happening at Celtic right now, whether it's the manager stuff. I want to touch on that. A bit on Callum Osmand, Europa League. We obviously play Michelin tomorrow. Probably hold back a lot of that chat until tomorrow's video because there's so much else going on. And we have a wee transfer rumour already. So yeah, let's do it. First of all, just a wee push for you to subscribe to the channel. If you are watching this and aren't yet subscribed, and I know there's lots of you out there, please consider just clicking the button. It takes just a few seconds. It's completely free as well. And we're trying to get to 19,000 as soon as possible. So it would really help. Yeah, so managerial search, not really a great deal to report right now. The main guys being linked are still Ange Postecoglou. He got the backing of Snoop Dogg yesterday. Yeah, I don't know who put Snoop Dogg forward as like a spokesperson for the Celtic support. Maybe he's eyeing up a position in the steering group or the collective, I don't know. But yeah, good to get his thoughts anyway, as we've covered a fair bit. The Ange Postecoglou stuff, we've not really heard much about it. We've not really heard much about like any real kind of concrete links to Celtic managers, which is a point we can touch on in a wee minute. But yeah, the Ange story last week was that he's wanting to take a break from football. So that seems unlikely. Kieran McKenna still a potential candidate. He spoke for, I think, like 7 or 8 minutes at his press conference at Ipswich on Friday, I think that was, and didn't really shut anything down, to be honest, which was interesting. But, you know, there's, again, been no kind of real talk of Celtic even making contact with Ipswich about McKenna. We've had Craig Bellamy mentioned. He is the current manager of Wales, who look pretty likely to finish second in their qualifying group for next year's World Cup. And if they do finish second, they'll go into the playoffs for the World Cup, which take place in March. I think even if they drop to third, they've already secured a spot in the playoffs to the Nations League. And obviously if they end up winning their group, which looks a little bit unlikely, I think Bellamy would be unlikely to leave them if he knew they were going to a World Cup. So I kind of feel like if it's going to be Craig Bellamy, it's not going to be for a while yet. And maybe you could say the same about, you know, a few other names in there. There were some quotes yesterday from the Football Association of Wales Chief Executive Noel Mooney. He was speaking to the Welsh channel S4C, and he basically said that Bellamy and Wales were just focused on the task at hand. Obviously, he's not going to come out and, you know, issue a come and get me plea on behalf of Craig Bellamy to Celtic, but yeah, I think there's like a kind of maybe a growing feeling, and I've seen it reported by a few people, that we may have to wait for some of our top targets to become available, whether that is Bellamy or McKenna or even Ketil Knutson at Bodo Glimt, someone like that. It does seem like what Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney have done over the past week has probably given the board a bit of time, and there's maybe a feeling there that we can go on for a bit with them in charge. And I generally feel that Celtic are quite reactive with these things, and if they feel that things are going well, and clearly they are so far, albeit only over 2 matches under O'Neill and Maloney, then they are the kind of board that will probably think, right, okay, we can take our time with this and we don't need to rush into doing anything. And I guess to an extent, they're kind of right, because I certainly feel a lot better about this Celtic team and what we can achieve this season than I did when Brendan Rodgers was in charge. It just obviously feels like things have gone pretty stale under Brendan Rodgers, and the change in manager, however that came about, has kind of rejuvenated everyone, I think, in terms of the players and the support as well. So yeah, maybe we are fine with Martin O'Neill and Sean Maloney carrying on for a bit, but it's starting to kind of become a bit of a feeling, I think, amongst the support and probably in the media as well, that we might not get a speedy managerial appointment here. Definitely the lack of reports about new managers. I know there's been a few, mainly a week ago, but in recent days there's been very little. And it's kind of all been more about Martin O'Neill and the team. I think that's quite telling. So that's the managerial hunt update over for today. In terms of what's actually going on in the Celtic camp right now, so the club's new Queen Street store officially opened last night. Remember, we at Celtic AM fully endorse the Celtic Collective's Not Another Penny campaign, which, just as a reminder, calls for no more merchandise purchases, no more food and drink at Celtic Park, no more stadium tours, bars, restaurants or club-run events, nothing beyond a match ticket. So yeah, I'm thinking that this new store is not going to be as busy as Celtic would want it, but they did hold an event last night. They had Sebastian Tenecti there, Callum Osmand and Johnny Kenny as well out at the new store. And just on Osmand, who is the most talked about player right now, so he wasn't included in our initial Europa League squad. Remember, he was left out alongside Inamura, Yamada and Simpson Pusey. However, there is a new rule, I think that's come in this year from UEFA, that allows clubs to make one change to their squad and replace a player who is out with a long-term injury or illness. And UEFA defines this as lasting at least 60 days. Now, Cameron Carter-Vickers is that. So Celtic are likely to be able to replace Cameron Carter-Vickers with Callum Osmand. The club are definitely pushing for this, and I think it's pretty likely that it's going to happen and that Callum Osmand is going to be available for us starting from Thursday's game in Denmark, which clearly would be a boost. I think it's easy to get swept up in the hype around Callum Osmand, and I think it's important as a fan base that we don't get too high at this moment and expect too much from him. This is a guy who, before Wednesday against Falkirk, had never played a senior match. So it's incredibly, incredibly early on in his career. And equally, I think, if he does play on Thursday or at the weekend or whatever and maybe doesn't do as well, it's important that we don't suddenly kind of go down. I mean, I think just generally, not just the Celtic support, but just in general life these days, it's very easy to kind of 1 minute be talking someone up and then after one game be looking back and saying, they're not up to much. So I think we have to kind of keep things real with Callum Osmand. He's a young player. He's got real raw attributes. I like his pace. I like his enthusiasm as well. I like his movement. I think he's kind of the closest thing we've had to Kyogo since Kyogo left, and I'm not saying Osmand's anywhere near that level of prime Kyogo. Nowhere near it, but I think in terms of the profile, we've really lacked pace in that striker position since Kyogo left, with Ian Acho's not massively quick, Kenny, Ida. I think Osmand, Yamada as well, I think Osmand does have that bit of pace. But yeah, I think, as I say, it's early days, so we just need to be patient with him, but hopefully he can keep turning up and performing like he did on Sunday. He's got this kind of weird thing going on because it seems like he's genuinely living through a bit of a dream at the moment. And it's pretty cool to actually see that in real time. He's, as I say, a week ago was basically playing in the B team and hadn't had a shot at all. And then Brendan Rodgers leaves and Martin O'Neill comes in and Sean Maloney with his influence and probably Stephen McManus with his influence and watching Osmand in the B team. And suddenly he's just kind of catapulted into the limelight and he's kind of thriving in that at the moment. But it feels to me like he's got that confidence as well that he could make this last. It doesn't seem like he's kind of been overtaken by the emotion at all. It feels like he feels that he belongs at this level. And yeah, I mean, kind of reminds me a little bit of Jeremy Frimpong in that. And again, Frimpong, I'm not saying Osmand's, going to have the same impact that Frimpong did, but Frimpong had played no professional football, came to Celtic, had that breakthrough, I think against Partick Thistle in the Cup, and then just went from there. And sometimes when you give these young players a platform, they can just thrive. And I think that's kind of the whole idea behind signing guys from the English academies. Some really good insight from Sean Maloney yesterday on Celtic TV, and honestly, I love listening to Sean Maloney. I'd never really listened to him before about a week ago, but I just think you get real good information from him. Like, he really gives you good insight into what's going on at the club. And as I say, yesterday, Celtic TV interview, and he explained how he and Stephen McManus had seen Osmand train and felt that they couldn't really hold him back anymore. And I don't think that was necessarily a dig at Brendan Rodgers, but kind of feels like maybe that was the case, and Osmand was just being held back a little bit just by not being given any opportunities, literally no opportunities to play. Maloney said, just on Martin O'Neill and Callum Osmand, I knew with Martin, when I met him for dinner to go through the squad and the players, I knew he would love Callum. He's the exact type of striker that the manager would like. You can sense that bond between the manager and Callum already, that he feels his trust. Just more generally, Maloney talked up the influence of several senior players since the changes that happened last week. So Callum McGregor, James Forrest, Kieran Tierney, Alistair Johnson, Cameron Carter-Vickers and Kasper Schmeichel. Really talking up all of them, kind of particularly Cameron Carter-Vickers, whom Maloney says made a big effort to be at the game on Sunday. So CCV, even though he's out at the moment, is I think really stepping up in the background at Celtic. Maloney spoke about he and Martin O'Neill and the coaching team making small tactical changes so far, and I think to anyone watching us over the past couple of games, it's been fairly obvious, but he did publicly say that we're trying to hurt teams more in behind, more runs from midfield and the wings. It certainly looks like more than small changes, having seen the difference in Celtic over the past couple of games compared to like probably the 40 odd before that. But I just wonder again how much of that was just the managerial change and just the kind of staleness that was clearly there under Brendan Rodgers, just being removed by the change of manager. So yeah, can we build on that now, and we go to Denmark, and can we get at least a draw? Can we go and win there? Clearly it's going to be difficult given that they're top of the Europa League at the moment and have started really well, and I think I've generally scored a lot of goals recently. They did draw at the weekend to AGF, who are the top team in Denmark at the moment, and that was at home, and also Hibs got a 1-1 draw in Denmark in Europa League qualifying earlier this season. So I don't think as much as they're doing really well in the Europa League, I don't think we should be fearful of Midtjylland tomorrow. I think it's a game that we should be going and trying to get a result. And I do feel so much more confident in that than I would have under Brendan Rodgers. I think under Brendan Rodgers and the way things were going, you'd almost be kind of writing off this game. I do feel with the confidence boost that Sunday will have given everyone, that we can go and get a result, and God, what a buzz that would be if we could go draw or even win in Denmark. Just a final story today, and I can go and rest my voice for another day. Stephen McGowan at the Herald reporting that we are contemplating, that's the word he's used, a bid for Kilmarnock midfielder David Watson in the January window. So the situation here is that Watson, who's a young midfielder at Kilmarnock, is out of contract with them at the end of the season, so we can speak to him from the start of 2026, the new year. And he's said to be one of a number of Scottish players that we're keeping an eye on with the UEFA homegrown quota in mind. I'm always kind of wary how much that thing is overblown, because you need 8 Scottish trained player, whether I think at least 4 of them have to be trained at Celtic, and you can have another 4 from other Scottish clubs like Luke McCowan or David Watson, for example. But if you only have 6 or 7, it just brings your overall squad size down a little bit. So I often do wonder if we do play that stuff kind of up too much. But yeah, maybe the club are looking at that, and Kelly said to have rated him just over $1 million in the summer. Clearly that's going to be a bit lower now with his contract, really running down. And yeah, I mean, it's potentially the club are just looking at him as being like another Scottish player, a bit like Luke McCowan, who can come in and offer us a little bit of depth. And yeah, I mean, I like his game from what I've seen. He's kind of a tenacious midfielder. He gets on the end of things, scores goals. Scored against us earlier this season with a brilliant header at Rugby Park. I don't think he's like a successor to Callum McGregor, but I don't know, maybe the club feel with the right training and development that he could be. So yeah, and he's from Prestwick as well, so I should really be fully on board with that. If we do sign him, it would bring our Prestwick tally up to 2 players, with James Forrest being the other one, and a YouTuber as well. So yeah, go on Prestwick. I think that's us for today. We're just looking forward to tomorrow, and it's going to be a big game, and we'll have the press conferences later today with the manager. Assuming it'll be Martin O'Neill doing that in Denmark. So we'll cover that tomorrow. Obviously look ahead to the game. We've not done that at all. Kind of look at Midtjylland a little bit. And yeah, any other news that comes up. So thanks everyone for being with me right now, and I'll chat to you soon.